Traitor! Clarence Holt snarled, his boots slamming against the creaky floorboards as he stormed into the dim backstage. Aiyana froze, her fingers clutching the Cherokee songbook as Holt thrust a crumpled Indian script at her. When she refused, he shoved her grandmother Tayanita, who crumpled in pain from her arthritis. In a flash of rage, Aiyana hurled a stage prop at Holt, grazing his shoulder. Now, with shouts of assault echoing and the law closing in, she stood at a crossroads. Betray her heritage to save Tayanita, or flee to protect the songs of her people. Aiyana, a 25-year-old Cherokee singer in 1919 Oklahoma, carried her ancestors' melodies in her heart but was trapped in a white theater troupe, forced to sing distorted Indian songs for coins. Living with her ailing grandmother, Tayanita, whose arthritis demanded costly medicine, Aiyana faced scorn from white audiences who saw her as a curiosity and rejection from her Cherokee community for selling out. Her secret love for Samuel, the troupe's white director, sparked whispers of betrayal from both sides. Torn between preserving her sacred songs and saving Tayanita, Aiyana felt the weight of her choices like a storm ready to break. In the flickering glow of a single lamp, Aiyana sat backstage, her voice weaving a Cherokee folk song that echoed her ancestors' spirit. Her fingers traced the worn edges of her songbook, each note a thread to her heritage. The distant piano from the stage jarred her, a reminder of the white audience waiting beyond the curtain. She adjusted her shawl, her heart heavy with dread at their mocking gazes. Aiyana whispered the song's words, seeking courage in their rhythm. A sharp knock interrupted. A stagehand barked that her performance was minutes away. She closed her eyes, offering a quiet prayer to her ancestors for strength. Then, Tayanita's frail cough from the corner broke her focus, her grandmother's pain a constant ache in Aiyana's chest. Aiyana knelt beside her, smoothing Tayanita's silver hair, whispering promises to buy medicine soon. The weight of her duty to both family and culture pressed down, but the song in her throat kept her steady, a fragile shield against the world outside. Clarence Holt burst through the backstage door, his heavy boots thudding like a drum of doom. Aiyana flinched, clutching her songbook as he waved a crumpled script in her face. "Sing this Indian nonsense tonight," he growled, his eyes glinting with greed. She scanned the pages, her stomach twisting at the mocking lyrics that turned her people's story into a circus act. Holt smirked, boasting how the white crowd would eat it up. Ignoring her clenched jaw, he snatched her Cherokee songbook and tossed it aside like trash. Aiyana's voice shook as she refused, her defiance sparking in her chest. Holt leaned closer, his breath sour, warning her to modernize or starve. Aiyana's nails dug into her palms, her heart pounding with fury and fear. She stood tall, bowing silently to protect her songs, even as Holt's shadow loomed over her, a storm threatening to break her resolve. Tayanita shuffled in, her hands trembling as she carried a chipped teapot for Aiyana. Holt's sneer cut through the air, calling her a useless old hag who slowed Aiyana down. Aiyana stepped forward, shielding her grandmother, her voice sharp as she demanded respect. Holt laughed, mocking the teapot as a pathetic offering unfit for his stage. Tayanita's eyes dimmed with hurt, but she held her head high, her silence louder than Holt's cruelty. Aiyana's chest burned with rage, her hands itching to act. She guided Tayanita to a chair, whispering comfort, though her own heart ached at the insult. Tayanita patted her hand, urging calm, but Aiyana felt the sting of Holt's words like a wound. The air grew heavy with tension, the lamp's light casting long shadows as Aiyana stood between her grandmother and the man who saw them as less than human. Aiyana's voice rose, firm and clear, as she refused Holt's script, declaring it a betrayal of her Cherokee blood. She held up her songbook, its pages sacred, demanding to sing her people's truth. Holt scoffed, calling her culture backward nonsense, no one cared about. Her eyes blazed as she spoke of her ancestors' pride, each word a defiance of his greed. Holt grabbed her songbook, tearing it in two with a cruel grin. Aiyana gasped, her heart splintering with the pages. She stepped forward, fists clenched, vowing never to sing his lies. Holt turned away, laughing, but Aiyana's resolve hardened, her spirit unbroken despite the fear creeping in. The torn pages lay scattered like fallen leaves, a silent challenge to fight for what was hers. Holt spun back, his face twisted with rage, threatening to fire Aiyana if she dared disobey. He leaned in, his voice low and venomous, promising to call the sheriff for her troublemaking. Aiyana's breath caught, knowing his ties to Judge Norton gave his threats weight. He sneered that without her pay, Tayanita's medicine would run dry. Aiyana's mind raced, picturing her grandmother's pain, her own helplessness a tightening knot. Holt pointed at the door, ordering her to comply or face ruin. She stood frozen, her defiance warring with fear for Tayanita's life. As Holt stormed out, Aiyana sank to the floor, her hands shaking, the echo of his threats ringing in her ears like a death knell. Samuel slipped through the backstage curtain, his face pale as he saw Aiyana hunched over. He knelt beside her, his voice soft, asking what happened. Aiyana choked out Holt's insults and threats, her voice breaking at the thought of Tayanita. Samuel's jaw tightened, his eyes flashing with anger as he promised to confront Holt. He took her hand, his touch warm, swearing to stand by her. Yet he admitted Holt's grip on the troupe trapped him too, his job hanging by a thread. Aiyana's heart lifted at his kindness, but sank at the danger he faced for her. Samuel stood, vowing to find Holt, his steps heavy with purpose as Aiyana watched, torn between hope and fear. Holt returned, his face red, as he found Samuel challenging him. He shoved Samuel hard, bellowing about his authority over the troupe. Tayanita, hearing the commotion, hobbled forward, her voice frail but firm, begging Holt to stop. Holt turned, his sneer vicious, and pushed Tayanita with a brutal hand. She fell, crying out as her arthritic knees buckled under her. Aiyana screamed, rushing to her grandmother's side, her heart pounding with panic. Samuel lunged at Holt, but the older man knocked him back, roaring for silence. The backstage filled with shouts as stagehands gathered, the air electric with violence, Aiyana's world unraveling in the chaos. Aiyana rose, her eyes blazing with a fury that drowned her fear. She grabbed a wooden stage prop, her hand steady despite her racing heart. With a cry, she hurled it at Holt, the wood striking his shoulder. He staggered, clutching the spot, his face contorted in shock and pain. Holt pointed at her, spitting curses, calling her a savage who would pay. Aiyana stood her ground, her breath ragged, the weight of her action crashing over her. Samuel pulled her back, his voice urgent, warning her to stop. The prop lay splintered on the floor, a symbol of her defiance, but also the spark of a fire she could not control. Holt clutched his shoulder, shouting for stagehands to fetch the sheriff. He accused Aiyana of assaulting a white man, his voice dripping with malice. Aiyana's stomach dropped, the word "truina" echoing in her mind as she realized the law would hunt her. Samuel stepped forward, arguing that Holt had provoked her, but the stagehands sided with their boss, their eyes cold. Holt limped out, leaving a trail of blood from his grazed shoulder, his threats hanging like smoke. Aiyana knelt by Tayanita, guilt flooding her as she saw her grandmother's pained face. She whispered apologies, her defiance now a chain binding her to an uncertain fate. Aiyana cradled Tayanita, checking her swollen knees, her hands trembling with fear. She imagined fleeing the troupe, the open road her only refuge. The thought of sheriff's boots closing in made her heart race. Capture meant prison, or worse. She glanced at the door, half expecting deputies to barge through. Tayanita squeezed her hand, her voice weak, urging Aiyana to stay strong. Aiyana counted the coins in her pocket, knowing they wouldn't buy enough medicine. Her choice loomed. Sing Holt's lies to save Tayanita or run to protect her songs, each path a blade to her heart. Tears fell as she held her grandmother, the weight of her world pressing her to the breaking point. Tayanita's frail hand tightened around Aiyana's, her eyes gleaming with a quiet strength despite the pain etching her face. She whispered of their Cherokee ancestors, who sang through storms and stood tall against betrayal. Aiyana's tears slowed as Tayanita's voice, soft yet steady, spoke of the songs as their people's heartbeat. She urged Aiyana not to bow to Holt's cruelty, her words a lifeline pulling Aiyana from despair. Tayanita's weathered fingers brushed Aiyana's cheek, her pride shining through her weakness. She spoke of the sacred duty to protect their heritage, a fire that must not die. Aiyana nodded, her heart swelling with resolve, vowing to honor her grandmother's faith. As Tayanita coughed, her body trembling, Aiyana held her close, the weight of her love and duty anchoring her against the chaos threatening to tear them apart. Samuel slipped back into the backstage, his face etched with worry, a tin cup of water in his hand for Tayanita. He knelt beside Aiyana, his voice low, confessing he couldn't stop Holt from calling the sheriff. Aiyana's heart sank, her eyes searching his for hope. Samuel's hand brushed hers, warm and steady, promising to stand by her no matter the cost. He admitted Holt's power over the troupe chained him too, his job and future at risk. Aiyana's chest ached with gratitude, but fear for Samuel's safety gnawed at her. He suggested moving Tayanita to safety before the law arrived, his eyes fierce with determination. Aiyana squeezed his hand, her hope flickering like the lamp above, torn between his courage and the danger, binding them all. Nanyehi burst through the backstage door, her breath ragged from running, her eyes wide with news of the chaos spreading through the troupe. She hugged Aiyana tightly, her warmth a shield against the cold fear gripping her friend. Nanyehi offered to take Tayanita home, promising to keep her safe from Holt's reach. She spoke of rallying the Cherokee community, her voice fierce with loyalty. Aiyana shared Holt's threats, her voice trembling at the memory of Tayanita's fall. Nanyehi's fists clenched, her anger mirroring Aiyana's, vowing to stand by her side. She guided Tayanita gently toward the door, her steps sure, promising to return with help. Aiyana watched them go, her heart lighter but still heavy with the fight ahead, Nanyehi's strength a spark in the darkness. Aiyana sat alone in the dim backstage, her fingers tracing the coins in her pocket, each one a reminder of Tayanita's dwindling medicine. She pictured the pharmacist's counter, the bottles she couldn't afford, her stomach twisting with dread. The torn songbook lay nearby, its pages a silent cry of her fractured heritage. Aiyana's mind churned, weighing the cost of staying with Holt's troupe to earn enough for Tayanita's care. She whispered a prayer, her voice breaking, begging for a path forward. The thought of singing Holt's lies made her skin crawl, but Tayanita's cough echoed in her mind. Aiyana stood, her resolve wavering but unbroken, deciding to stay for one more show to buy time. The lamp flickered, casting shadows that danced like her fears, but she held her ground. Aiyana met Samuel in the quiet corner of the backstage, her voice low as she confessed her plan to sing Holt's song just once. Samuel's face fell, his eyes pleading, warning that it would break her spirit. Aiyana's heart twisted, but she explained Tayanita's medicine depended on it, her voice thick with guilt. Samuel gripped her shoulders, his touch firm, urging her to find another way. She shook her head, tears welling, insisting it was her only choice for now. Aiyana asked him to keep her decision secret, her trust in him a fragile thread. She turned to the mirror, practicing Holt's lyrics, each word a betrayal that burned her throat. Aiyana steeled herself, a reflection showing a woman caught between love and duty, ready to face the stage's cruel spotlight. The stage lights blinded Aiyana as she stepped forward, the crowd's murmurs a dull roar in her ears. She wore the garish Indian costume Holt demanded, its beads heavy with shame. Her voice faltered as she sang his mocking song, each note a knife to her pride. The white audience clapped, their cheers hollow, seeing only a spectacle, not her pain. Aiyana's eyes found Holt in the wings, his smug grin fueling her disgust. She thought of Tayanita, her grandmother's face giving her strength to finish. The final note lingered, and she fled backstage, her chest heaving with sobs. Collapsing in a corner, Aiyana buried her face in her hands, the weight of her choice crushing her spirit. Yet Tayanita's life hung in the balance. The crowd's applause faded, but their voices lingered, calling Aiyana a wild Indian girl with amused disdain. A man shouted for Holt to bring her back, his words a slap to her dignity. Holt strutted among them, boasting of her exotic charm, his greed gleaming in his eyes. Aiyana, hidden behind a curtain, heard every word, her heart sinking under their mockery. A stagehand pressed her pay into her hand, the coins cold but vital for Tayanita's medicine. She clutched them, her mind racing with plans to escape Holt's grasp. The realization hit her. These people saw her culture as a jest, not a legacy. Aiyana's resolve hardened, her tears drying as she vowed to fight for her songs, no matter the cost. Aiyana hurried home, her heart lurching as she found Tayanita curled on their cot, her breathing shallow. The old woman's face was pale, her swollen joints trembling with each cough. Aiyana checked the medicine jar, her fingers shaking as she saw only one dose left. She sat beside Tayanita, recounting the humiliating performance, her voice cracking with shame. Tayanita's hand found hers, her touch gentle, urging Aiyana not to blame herself. Aiyana's eyes burned with tears, the fear of losing her grandmother clawing at her chest. She promised to buy more medicine with her pay, her voice fierce with determination. Kneeling by the cot, Aiyana prayed for Tayanita's strength, her love, a beacon in the gathering dark. Aiyana stepped out to buy medicine, her shawl tight against the evening chill, when a shadow moved nearby. A Cherokee man, cloaked in a feathered hat, pressed a scrap of paper into her hand, his eyes sharp with warning. The note hinted at Holt's dark plans, mentioning a hidden recorder. Aiyana's pulse quickened, her fingers tracing the words as the man vanished into the dusk. She stood frozen, the paper a spark of suspicion in her mind. Questions swirled. Was Holt stealing her songs? Aiyana tucked the note away, her fear mingling with curiosity, and hurried to Samuel's lodging. She shared the stranger's warning, her voice urgent, sensing a deeper threat lurking behind Holt's greed. Aiyana and Samuel sat in the flickering light of his small room, the mysterious note spread between them. Samuel frowned, recalling Holt's locked office, always guarded like a fortress. Aiyana's mind raced, connecting Holt's questions about her songs to the stranger's warning. She voiced her fear that Holt was exploiting her culture, her voice trembling with anger. Samuel suggested sneaking into Holt's office at night, his eyes alight with defiance. Aiyana hesitated, the risk of capture looming, but Tayanita's cough echoed in her heart. They agreed to act soon, their pact, a fragile hope against Holt's shadow. Aiyana left, her steps quick, the note burning in her pocket like a call to battle. Under the moon's pale light, Samuel crept toward Holt's office, the troops camped silent around him. His heart pounded as he tested the locked door, his fingers fumbling with a borrowed hairpin. Inside, he found stacks of papers, contracts with names he didn't recognize. A receipt caught his eye, detailing a costly recording machine, its purpose unclear but ominous. Samuel's breath hitched. Holt was hiding something big. Footsteps echoed outside, and he froze, spotting Floyd's shadow through the window. Thinking fast, Samuel mumbled an excuse about lost props, slipping out before Floyd could question him. He hurried to Aiyana's home, his voice urgent as he shared the discovery, confirming her fears about Holt's schemes. Aiyana's eyes widened, her resolve hardening, but Samuel's warning about Floyd's suspicions sent a chill through her, the weight of their secret growing heavier. Aiyana waited until midnight, the troupe's snores masking her steps as she slipped into Holt's office. Her hands shook as she pried open a locked drawer, revealing a clunky recording machine. She pressed a button, and her own voice sang back, a Cherokee melody stolen in secret. Her stomach churned, betrayal cutting deep. Holt was robbing her people's soul. Papers nearby listed native artists, their names tied to binding contracts. Aiyana's fingers traced the words, her anger flaring at the thought of others trapped like her. She tucked a few documents into her shawl, her heart racing as she slipped out, the machine's hum haunting her. Back home, she clutched Tayanita's quilt, vowing to expose Holt's theft, her fear drowned by a fire of defiance. Aiyana's hands trembled as she spread the stolen papers before Samuel, the lamplight casting shadows on Baxter's name, a music mogul linked to Holt. Her voice broke as she read aloud contracts enslaving native singers, forcing them into dangerous shows for profit. Samuel's jaw clenched, his eyes dark with shock at the scale of the betrayal. The documents detailed plans to sell Cherokee songs to foreign companies, stripping them of meaning. Aiyana's chest tightened, her ancestors' voices crying out in her mind. She slammed her fist on the table, vowing to stop Holt and Baxter, no matter the cost. Samuel nodded, his hand covering hers, their shared anger forging a bond against the looming threat. Aiyana hid the papers under her floorboards, her heart pounding with the weight of the secret they now carried. Aiyana found Holt in the troupe's rehearsal tent, her voice steady as she demanded answers about the recorder. Holt's eyes narrowed, a sly grin spreading as he admitted to profiting from native charm. Her blood boiled, but his next words chilled her. He'd have her jailed for theft if she spoke out. Aiyana revealed she had proof, her defiance sparking in her eyes. Holt's grin vanished, and he summoned Floyd, ordering him to watch her every move. She backed away, her heart racing, the tense walls closing in. Outside, she leaned against a tree, her breath ragged, knowing she needed allies to face Holt's power. The memory of Tayanita's strength steadied her, pushing her to seek the mysterious stranger's help. Nanyehi met Aiyana at dawn, her face bruised from a scuffle, her voice fierce with news from the Cherokee village. Floyd had cornered her, suspecting she knew about Holt's recorder, and struck her when she refused to talk. Aiyana's heart sank, guilt flooding her for endangering her friend. Nanyehi waved off her apologies, her eyes blazing, vowing to fight alongside her. Aiyana led her to a healer, her hands gentle as she cleaned Nanyehi's wounds, her gratitude deepening their bond. Nanyehi spoke of rallying the village, her spirit unbroken despite the pain. Aiyana's resolve strengthened, but fear for Nanyehi's safety gnawed at her. She hugged her friend tightly, their shared defiance a shield against the growing storm. Aiyana rushed to Tayanita's bedside, her heart lurching as she saw her grandmother's labored breathing. The healer shook his head, warning that Tayanita's arthritis had worsened, her joints too swollen to move. Aiyana's hands shook as she spooned the last of the medicine into Tayanita's mouth, her eyes burning with tears. She knelt beside the cot, whispering apologies for dragging her into this fight. Tayanita's frail hand found hers, her voice weak but firm, urging Aiyana to protect their songs. Aiyana's chest ached, the fear of losing her grandmother a knife in her heart. She paid the healer with her stage earnings, her voice cracking as she promised to return. Aiyana kissed Tayanita's forehead, her love a desperate plea against the ticking clock. Floyd ambushed Samuel outside the rehearsal tent, his voice low and threatening, warning him to abandon Aiyana or lose everything. Samuel's heart raced, sensing Holt's spies everywhere, but he lied, claiming he'd cut ties with her. Floyd's eyes narrowed, unconvinced, and he shoved Samuel against a wall, bruising his ribs. Samuel gritted his teeth, hiding his pain, and stumbled to Aiyana's home. He confessed the threat, his voice hoarse, but swore to keep fighting for her. Aiyana's eyes filled with tears, her gratitude for his loyalty warring with fear for his safety. They sat in silence, the weight of Floyd's threat hanging over them. Samuel's hand rested on hers, a quiet vow to face the danger together, their bond a flicker of light in the dark. Aiyana sat by Tayanita's cot, the night's silence broken only by her grandmother's shallow breaths. Her heart ached, the thought of losing Tayanita tearing her apart. She clutched the stolen papers, their secrets a heavy burden, wondering if her fight was worth the cost. The memory of Holt's grin fueled her anger, but doubt crept in, whispering of surrender. Aiyana's eyes fell on Tayanita's woven blanket, its patterns a map of Cherokee stories. She prayed, her voice a whisper, begging her ancestors for courage. The thought of Tayanita's pride in her fight sparked a faint hope. Aiyana stood, her resolve renewed, determined to honor her grandmother by exposing Holt, no matter the risk. A shadow stirred outside Aiyana's window, and the Cherokee stranger, his feathered hat low, slipped her another note. It pointed to a hidden stash of Holt's documents, buried near the river. His voice was low, warning her to act before Baxter's men arrived. Aiyana's pulse quickened, her fingers clutching the paper, but the stranger vanished when she asked his name. The note's words burned in her mind, promising answers but also danger. She hid it in her shawl, her fear mingling with a surge of purpose. Aiyana hurried to Samuel, sharing the stranger's clue, her voice urgent. They agreed to search the riverbank, their hope fragile but fierce, the stranger's shadow guiding them toward truth. Aiyana and Samuel met under the stars, the river's murmur masking their whispers. Samuel carried a lantern, its light dim to avoid prying eyes. Aiyana's heart raced, the stranger's note a map to Holt's secrets. They spoke of Tayanita, her fading strength driving their resolve. Samuel's eyes shone with defiance, his fear buried beneath loyalty to Aiyana. Aiyana knelt by the river, her hands digging for the promised stash, her breath catching at every rustle. They vowed to expose Holt together, their voices low but firm. As they searched, the night closed in, the weight of their mission a shared burden, their bond a spark against the darkness threatening to swallow them. Aiyana clutched the morning newspaper, her heart sinking as Judge Norton's decree screamed from the headlines, a warrant for her arrest, branding her a troublemaker. She hid the paper under her shawl, her breath shallow, knowing Norton's alliance with Holt tightened the noose around her. At the troops' camp, she overheard stagehands whispering about the sheriff's patrols circling her home. Aiyana's mind raced, picturing Tayanita alone, vulnerable to Norton's men. She slipped into the rehearsal tent, where Holt met Norton, their laughter cold as they planned to crush her defiance. Norton's voice carried a warning. Samuel and Nanyehi were next if they meddled. Aiyana fled to Samuel, her voice trembling as she shared the news, her fear for her loved ones a heavy stone in her chest. They vowed to act swiftly, their resolve a flickering flame against the growing storm of Norton's power. Aiyana trudged through the Cherokee village, her heart heavy as she faced the council's stern faces. The head elder, his voice sharp, accused her of selling their songs to Holt's troupe, calling her a traitor. She pleaded, explaining Tayanita's illness and Holt's threats, her voice cracking with desperation. The elders turned away, their silence a wall of distrust, dismissing her as a lost cause. Aiyana's knees buckled. tears stinging her eyes as she felt the sting of rejection from her own people. She clutched her shawl, the memory of Tayanita's faith urging her to stand tall. As she left, a young villager's gaze lingered, hinting at doubt in the elder's verdict. Aiyana's resolve flickered, her loneliness a shadow. But she swore to prove her loyalty to her tribe. Nanyehi found Aiyana by the village stream, her face bruised but her spirit unbroken, her voice fierce with determination. She recounted her talk with the village youth, some swayed by Aiyana's fight against Holt. Nanyehi's eyes blazed as she promised to rally them, her loyalty a lifeline for Aiyana's fading hope. They sat on the bank, Aiyana's hands twisting in her lap, guilt rising for Nanyehi's wounds. Nanyehi planned a secret meeting with the young warriors, her words sharp with purpose. Aiyana shared the stolen papers, her voice low, sparking Nanyehi's anger at Holt's betrayal. A young boy overheard, his eyes wide, promising to spread the word. Aiyana hugged Nanyehi, her heart lifting, their bond a spark of unity against the elder's scorn. Aiyana and Samuel crept to the riverbank at midnight, the lantern's dim glow guiding their steps through the reeds. Aiyana's hands dug into the cold earth following the stranger's note, her heart pounding with anticipation. Samuel kept watch, his whispers urgent, warning of Holt's men nearby. They unearthed a metal box, its lock rusted, but heavy with secrets. Inside, Aiyana found contracts signed by Baxter, tying Holt to a web of exploitation. Her breath caught, the papers detailing stolen songs and enslaved artists, a betrayal deeper than she imagined. They hid the box under Samuel's coat, their footsteps quick as they fled, the river's murmur masking their escape. Aiyana's heart soared with hope, the evidence a weapon, but fear of discovery clung to her like mist. Aiyana's hand shook as she read the contracts by lamplight, Baxter's name scrawled across plans to sell Cherokee songs worldwide. Her voice trembled, revealing Holt as a pawn in Baxter's empire, profiting from her people's soul. Samuel's face paled, his anger matching hers as he cursed Baxter's greed. The papers listed native artists bound to deadly performances, their lives cheap to Baxter's wealth. Aiyana's tears fell, her ancestors' voices screaming in her mind, betrayed by her own performances. She clutched Samuel's arm, vowing to destroy Baxter's plans, her fear buried under rage. They hid the papers in a hollow tree, their pact sealed with a shared glance. Aiyana's heart thundered, the truth a burning torch, but the shadow of Baxter's power loomed larger than ever. Aiyana woke to smoke on the horizon, her heart lurching as Samuel burst in, shouting that Baxter's men had torched the riverbank stash. They ran to the site, finding ashes where their evidence once lay, the metal box a melted ruin. Aiyana's knees buckled, her hope crumbling with the charred earth, her fight seemingly lost. Samuel gripped her shoulders, his voice fierce, reminding her of the papers they'd saved. She clutched the hidden contracts, her tears mixing with ash, the loss a knife in her chest. A passing villager whispered of Baxter's men fleeing, hinting at their fear of exposure. Aiyana stood, her resolve reigniting, vowing to use their remaining proof to end Baxter's reign. The smoke stung her eyes, but her spirit burned brighter, defiance rising from the ruins. Aiyana sat by Tayanita's bedside, the healer's warning echoing. Her grandmother's time was short. Tayanita's voice, barely a whisper, recounted a Cherokee tale of warriors who fought against impossible odds. Aiyana's heart ached, her tears falling as she held Tayanita's frail hand. Feeling the weight of her fading strength, Tayanita urged her to protect their songs, her eyes shining with pride despite her pain. Aiyana confessed her fear of failure, her voice breaking under the burden of her fight. Tayanita's fingers squeezed hers, a spark of courage passing between them. She kissed her grandmother's forehead, promising to carry their legacy forward. Aiyana left, her love for Tayanita, a fire fueling her resolve, even as grief threatened to drown her. Floyd dragged Samuel into Holt's storage shed, his fists bruising Samuel's arms as he hissed threats to kill him if Aiyana didn't back down. Samuel's ribs ached from Floyd's earlier blows, but he stayed silent, his loyalty to Aiyana unbroken. Floyd chained him to a post, his laughter cruel, taunting Samuel's defiance. Samuel's mind raced, picturing Aiyana's face, his heart steady despite the pain. A stagehand, loyal to Samuel, saw the attack, his eyes wide with fear as he slipped away. Samuel whispered a prayer, his voice hoarse, vowing to escape for Aiyana's sake. Floyd left, his threats lingering like poison, but Samuel's spirit held firm, his bond with Aiyana a light in the dark. The Cherokee stranger appeared at Aiyana's door, his feathered hat casting shadows as he handed her a new note. It promised a federal reporter waiting in town, ready to hear her story. Aiyana's pulse raced, the stranger's voice low, urging her to act before Baxter's men struck again. She asked his name, but he stepped back, vanishing into the night. The note's words sparked hope, a chance to expose Holt and Baxter to the world. Aiyana hid it in her pocket, her fear tempered by a surge of purpose. She ran to Nanyehi, sharing the plan, her voice trembling with urgency. They agreed to find the reporter, their hope a fragile thread, the stranger's guidance a beacon through the chaos. Aiyana and Samuel slipped into the village at dawn, the stolen papers tucked inside her shawl, their weight a reminder of their mission. Samuel's ribs ached, but his eyes burned with defiance, his loyalty to Aiyana unwavering. Aiyana's heart raced, the reporter's promise a faint light in their dark path. They spoke of Tayanita, her fading strength driving their urgency. Aiyana's hands shook, the fear of Baxter's reach haunting her steps. Samuel squeezed her hand, his voice steady, vowing to protect her. They found Nanyehi waiting, her face set, ready to join their fight. Together, they moved toward the town, their bond a shield, the papers a sword to strike at Holt's heart. Aiyana stood in the village clearing at dusk, her heart pounding as she faced the gathered Cherokee youth. She sang a folk song, its notes carrying the weight of their ancestors, her voice steady despite her fear. Nanyehi stood beside her, nodding encouragement, as Aiyana revealed Holt's theft of their songs. She held up the stolen contracts, her hands trembling, showing Baxter's plans to exploit their heritage. A young warrior's eyes widened, his murmur spreading through the crowd, stirring hope. The head elder lingered at the edge, his frown softening, swayed by her truth. Aiyana called for unity, her voice rising, urging the tribe to fight for their legacy. As the song ended, the youth cheered, their voices a spark of defiance, lifting Aiyana's spirit, though the shadow of Norton's warrant loomed. Judge Norton's boots thundered into the clearing, his sheriff's men shoving through the crowd, their rifles gleaming in the torchlight. He bellowed that Aiyana was under arrest for inciting chaos, his voice dripping with malice. The youth closed ranks around her, their shouts drowning his orders, their defiance a wall. Tayanita, frail but present, stumbled forward to see Aiyana, only to be knocked down by a deputy's careless shove. Aiyana screamed, rushing to her grandmother's side, her heart shattering at Tayanita's pained gasp. Norton sneered, ordering her seized, but the tribe's chants held the sheriffs back. Aiyana cradled Tayanita, her tears falling, vowing to end Norton's tyranny. The torches flickered, the clash of wills a storm ready to break. Nanyehi rallied the youth after the sheriffs retreated, her voice fierce as she recounted Aiyana's courage and Tayanita's sacrifice. She stood on a stump, her bruises lit by firelight, urging the tribe to protect their songs. A young warrior pledged his spear, his words igniting others, their unity a growing flame. The head elder stepped forward, his voice heavy, admitting his doubt in Aiyana was wrong. Nanyehi planned night patrols to guard the village, her eyes blazing with purpose. Aiyana, tending Tayanita's wounds, listened, her heart swelling with gratitude for Nanyehi's strength. She hugged her friend, their bond a fortress against Holt's schemes. The village hummed with resolve. Aiyana's hope rekindled, though Tayanita's frail breaths haunted her. Samuel stumbled into the village, his face bruised but his eyes alight, freed by a stagehand who defied Holt. He embraced Aiyana, his voice hoarse, recounting his escape from Floyd's chains. Aiyana bandaged his cuts, her hands gentle, her heart aching for his pain but soaring at his return. Samuel vowed to join her fight, his loyalty a steady anchor in the chaos. They sat by the fire, planning to use the stolen papers against Holt, their whispers urgent. A young villager offered to guide them to town, his eyes fierce with support. Samuel gripped Aiyana's hand, his strength bolstering her resolve. The night air crackled with their shared purpose, the village a shield around them, ready for the battle ahead. The Cherokee stranger emerged from the shadows, his feathered hat low, revealing himself as Sequoia, a former singer broken by Baxter's greed. Aiyana's breath caught, his story of betrayal mirroring her own, his eyes heavy with regret. He handed her a list of witnesses, native artists ready to testify against Baxter, their names a spark of hope. Sequoia spoke of his shame, his voice low, vowing to right his wrong. Aiyana clasped his hand, her gratitude fierce, inviting him to join their stand. He nodded, promising to bring the witnesses to town, his resolve a quiet fire. She tucked the list into her shawl, her heart racing with the weight of their alliance. Sequoia vanished into the night, leaving Aiyana stronger, her fight now a chorus of voices. Aiyana gathered Nanyehi, Samuel, and the village youth in a hidden grove, their faces lit by a single lantern. She outlined a plan to disrupt Holt's grand show, her voice steady, proposing to sing a true Cherokee song to expose his crimes. Samuel suggested cutting the stage lights, his eyes glinting with defiance, ensuring chaos to amplify their message. Nanyehi pledged to bring warriors to the theater, their presence a silent threat. Aiyana contacted the federal reporter, her note urgent, securing his presence at the show. The youth murmured agreement, their fists clenched, ready to stand with her. She spoke of Tayanita's fading strength, her voice breaking, fueling their resolve. They clasped hands, their unity a vow, the grove humming with their shared courage. Aiyana stepped onto the theater stage, her heart thundering as the crowd's murmurs filled the air. She defied Holt's script, her voice rising in a Cherokee song, its truth cutting through the hall like a blade. Holt's face twisted with rage, his shout lost in her melody, as the audience stirred, confused. Aiyana paused, her voice clear, accusing Holt and Baxter of stealing her people's soul. The village youth stormed in, banners high, their chants shaking the walls. Samuel yanked the stage's power cord, plunging the theater into darkness. The crowd's gasps a chaotic symphony. The reporter scribbled furiously, his pen capturing every word. Aiyana's spirit soared, her song a war cry, the stage a battlefield where her truth blazed. Sequoia strode onto the darkened stage, his witnesses behind him, their voices rising to confirm Aiyana's accusations. A singer recounted Baxter's brutal contracts, her scars visible, her words a hammer against Holt's lies. The reporter shouted questions, his notebook filling, as federal marshals pushed through the crowd. Holt lunged for the exit, his face pale, but marshals seized him, his curses drowned by the youth's chants. Norton, cornered, raised his hands, his authority crumbling under the witnesses' truth. The audience sat stunned, some clapping, their cheers a faint echo of justice. Aiyana embraced Samuel, her heart pounding with victory. the theater alive with the power of her people's voice. The marshals led Holt away, the weight of his crimes finally exposed. Aiyana raced to the hospital, her victory bitter as the healer met her with grave eyes, saying Tayanita had slipped away. She collapsed beside her grandmother's still form, her sobs shaking her, the loss a knife in her soul. A note in Tayanita's hand read, "You saved our songs." Its words a balm to Aiyana's grief. She kissed Tayanita's forehead, her tears falling, whispering thanks for her strength. The village youth gathered outside, their voices soft in a mourning song, honoring Tayanita's sacrifice. Aiyana clutched the note, her heart torn between sorrow and pride, vowing to carry her grandmother's legacy. Nanyehi's hand rested on her shoulder, a silent promise of support. Aiyana stood, her spirit heavy but unbroken, Tayanita's love a guiding star. The Cherokee songs were safe, their melodies free from Baxter's greed, as Holt and Norton faced trials for their crimes. Aiyana returned to her village, her voice now honored, singing for her people with pride. She and Samuel, accepted by the tribe, planned a sanctuary for Cherokee culture, their love a bridge between worlds. The stolen papers, published by the reporter, sparked outrage, ensuring Baxter's downfall. Tayanita's sacrifice lingered in Aiyana's heart, her memory a fire that fueled every song. The village gathered to hear Aiyana sing, their voices joining hers, a testament to resilience. Sequoia watched from the crowd, his redemption complete, his nod a silent farewell. Aiyana's song rose, carrying Tayanita's spirit, a promise that their heritage would endure, forged in courage and loss.